Welcome back to The Other Opinion. You've sent us a ton of stuff on free speech in India, specifically how it intersects with comedy and censorship, articles, research, even some legal cases. Pretty wild.
It is wild.
Ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay, cool. So this whole controversy with comedian Samay Raina and the Supreme Court, it's like, wow, right.
Yeah, it really highlights how tricky things are for comedians in India these days. Like, where's the line?
Exactly. For anyone who hasn't heard about this whole saga, Samay Raina has this show, India's Got Latent, which, by the way, awesome name.
Yeah, great name.
That show itself has run into legal issues, but what we're focusing on is, like, the aftermath.
Yeah.
Raina was performing in Canada, made some jokes about the whole India's Got Latent situation, and somehow it got back to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Justice Surya Kant issued a warning to Raina, something like, "We might be old, but we know how to handle you young folks. Don't take us lightly." Pretty intense.
Right, like comedians, they use humor to push boundaries, right? Satire, irony, all that. But then you have the judiciary, which is all about upholding the law, demanding respect. It's this huge clash of, I don't know, styles, values. It's tricky. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to The Other Opinion. We really appreciate your support. And also don't forget to leave your other opinions in the comments below.
Definitely. And it's not just about individual cases, you know. Look at India's ranking on the 2024 World Press Freedom Index, 150th out of 180 countries.
Oh, wow. Out of 180.
Yeah, and that's a big drop since 2014 when it was 140th. That puts India in the very serious category. Not good.
No, not good at all.
It really makes you think about a broader context here. Journalists, content creators, they're facing some serious challenges in India right now.
Absolutely. And this Raina case, it's just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
You sent us some articles about other Indian comedians like Kunal Kamra, Munawar Farooqi. They've also had legal trouble because of their material. It's a recurring pattern.
It is. It's this tension between creative expression and what's considered acceptable, by society, by the law. It makes you wonder, are these comedians pushing things too far, or are they just holding up a mirror, using humor to challenge things that need to be challenged?
So interesting. And you know who has thoughts on all this free speech stuff?
Mm.
Elon Musk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You probably wouldn't think a tech billionaire would weigh in on Indian comedy. But he actually has some interesting things to say about free speech in general. Tell your friends about The Other Opinion, and let's keep this conversation going.
Okay, so Elon Musk, he's like the ultimate free speech advocate, right? Believes in absolute free speech, even if it's offensive, even if some people find it hateful.
Right, which of course opens up this whole other debate. Where do we draw the line? Like, what about speech that incites violence or spreads harmful misinformation? Is that still protected? Musk's perspective just adds another layer to this already super complex issue.
It does. It gets to this big philosophical question about limits, right? What one culture considers acceptable might be totally off limits somewhere else. It's a tough one.
It really is. So we've got India's press freedom ranking, these high-profile cases with comedians. Now you throw Elon Musk and his views on free speech into the mix. It's a lot to unpack. What are your other opinions on all this? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, chime in, folks. We want to hear what you think. It comes down to this, right? How do we balance the need for freedom of expression with, protecting people from potential harm? Where does humor fit into all this? What do you think?
Great questions. If we can't even laugh at ourselves and the absurdities of life, poke fun at those in power, are we really free? But before we go any further, I think we should take a step back. Look at the history of comedy and censorship in India. This isn't a new thing, right? And don't forget to like and subscribe to The Other Opinion and share it with your friends. It helps us get these conversations out there.
Oh, definitely not new. India has this long, complicated history with censorship, both in the arts and the media. And comedy, with its power to question things, make people think, well, it's often been right in the crosshairs.
Makes you think about this. India's got latent controversy in a whole new light, just the latest chapter in a much bigger story.
Exactly, a story that's still being written. And it's not just relevant to India, it's a global issue. As societies change, as technology changes, the boundaries of free speech are constantly shifting.
And we, as citizens, as consumers of all this media, we have a role to play, right? We get to decide what kind of world we want to live in. A world where laughter is stifled, or a world where it can be a force for change. Stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll look at some possible solutions. But before that, what stands out to you so far? What are you thinking about? Drop your questions in the comments below.
Welcome back to The Other Opinion. We're digging deeper into this whole free speech, comedy, and censorship thing in India. And, like we said last time, it's complicated, no easy answers here.
Totally. It's easy to get stuck in that whole should it be allowed or banned debate. But what I really want to figure out is, like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's the key. We can all agree that freedom of expression is important, but there are real concerns about harm, misinformation, even hate speech. How do we find that balance? What does responsible free speech actually look like in practice?
Big questions. And I don't think there's one right answer that works for everyone everywhere. But maybe. Like, we can learn from how different societies have dealt with this. Hit that like button if you're digging this deep dive. And subscribe to The Other Opinion to keep up with future episodes.
Good idea. And India is really interesting, right? Because it's got this long history of diverse viewpoints, lively debate, and a legal system that's always changing. It's like a microcosm of the global free speech challenges.
I like that. A microcosm.
Yeah.
So let's get practical. What can we do right now to make things better for journalists, comedians, content creators in India? You sent us some stuff on this, right?
Right. Well, first off, journalist safety. The World Press Freedom Index report you shared, it shows a scary increase in threats and violence against journalists in India, especially those covering sensitive topics.
Yeah, that's messed up. If people are risking their lives just to report the news, express their opinions, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's afraid to speak up.
Exactly. So stronger legal protections are crucial, and we need ways to investigate and prosecute those attacks. Send a message that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated.
Okay, makes sense. But what about the censorship itself? We talked about Samay Raina and other comedians getting in trouble for jokes. Is there a way to relax those restrictions without just, going totally Wild West with free speech? I'd love to hear your other opinions on this, so leave a comment below. And don't forget to share this with your friends. Let's learn from each other.
Right, it's tricky. One approach could be revisiting the laws around hate speech and defamation. Some say they're too broadly interpreted in India, leading to too much censorship.
So maybe a clearer definition of hate speech versus just offensive or controversial speech could help.
Potentially. But then who gets to decide what's acceptable? Right now, it's often the courts. And like we saw with the Raina case, those decisions can be pretty subjective.
It's like the courts are always playing catch-up with how fast comedy changes, especially online. By the time a case is decided, the whole conversation has moved on.
Exactly. Which brings up another point. The digital age has totally changed the free speech landscape. With social media, anyone can be a publisher, and information, true or false, spreads instantly.
It's true. And that's where misinformation comes in. We're not just talking about protecting people from a bad joke. It's about protecting them from harmful lies, propaganda.
Right. So how do you fight misinformation without becoming super censor happy? That's the big question. And part of the answer might be media literacy.
Media literacy. Tell me more about that. What are your other opinions on this? Let's hear it in the comments.
Well, if people are better at, evaluating the information they see every day, figuring out what's true and what's not, they're less likely to be manipulated.
Makes sense. Invest in education, teach people how to spot fake news, how to think for themselves. That's a powerful tool.
Totally. And it's not just about schools. It's about fostering critical thinking, encouraging people to question assumptions, seek out different views.
I love that. We need more of that. Speaking of navigating this crazy world of information, we haven't even touched on technology's role in all this. Stick around for part 3, where we'll go there. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it.
Good point. It's not just old school media anymore. We've got algorithms, AI, the metaverse. It's a whole new frontier for free speech with a whole new set of questions.
Right. Imagine AI decided which jokes are okay and which aren't. It's like something out of Black Mirror.
I know, right? But it's closer than you think. AI is already flagging content. As it gets smarter, the line between human judgment and what an algorithm decides gets blurrier.
It's a minefield, ethically speaking. We need to be talking about the values we build into these technologies, the principles guiding how they're developed and used. Because technology, it's just a tool, right? It can be used for good or bad. We decide how it's wielded. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you like this. New episodes every week on The Other Opinion. We always want to hear your thoughts.
Exactly. It all comes back to what we've been saying this whole time. It's not just about India. It's not just about comedy. It's about this fundamental human right, freedom of expression, and how we protect it, how we nurture it in a world that's constantly changing.
And free speech, it's not about saying whatever you want with no consequences. It's about understanding the power of your words, engaging in dialogue even when you disagree. True freedom means being responsible.
It's about questioning, evolving, finding ways to balance individual rights with what's good for society as a whole.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. The Samay Raina case, India's press freedom ranking, Elon Musk's take, even AI and the future of free speech. It's been a wild ride.
And it doesn't end here. This conversation's always evolving. We need your voices to keep it going.
So keep those other opinions coming. What are you thinking? What solutions do you see? Let's discuss in the comments. And don't forget to like and share this episode. The more people involved, the better. Welcome back to The Other Opinion. You guys have left some really thought-provoking comments about free speech in the digital age. We're diving into those other opinions today.
Yeah, some really interesting points raised. A lot of you are concerned about, the power of big tech companies, how they control so much of what we see and hear, even think.
Right. It's like they're the new public square, but they're privately owned with their own agendas. And these algorithms, they often care more about engagement than, actual truth or accuracy. Kind of scary when you think about it.
It is a bit, yeah. So how do we balance that? The need for some moderation, taking down really harmful stuff, versus these companies becoming like the ultimate censors. It's tricky.
Super tricky. Some people say we need more government regulation to keep them in check. Others think decentralized platforms, like using blockchain, is the way to go. Spread the power around a bit. What do you think? Hit us with your other opinions in the comments. And hey, share this podcast with your friends too.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going. And it all comes back to media literacy, right? The more we understand how these platforms work, the better we can navigate them. Think critically about what we're seeing.
We can't just passively absorb everything.
Right.
We got to question things, seek out different viewpoints, have those tough conversations, even when we disagree.
Exactly. A lot of you also brought up AI, which is fascinating and a little unnerving at the same time. Imagine AI deciding which jokes are okay and which aren't. That's a whole other level of censorship.
Straight out of Black Mirror. Right. But it's not that far off. AI is already being used to flag content. And as it gets more advanced, who knows what kind of decisions it'll be making? That line between human judgment and an algorithm, it's getting blurry.
It is. And that's where things get really ethically complex. What values are we putting into these systems? What principles are guiding them? We need to be having those conversations now.
Because ultimately, tech is just a tool, right? It can be used for good or bad. It's up to us as humans to decide how we use it. If you're enjoying this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got new episodes every week here on The Other Opinion. We always want to hear your thoughts.
Always. It all comes back to what this deep dive is about, It's not just about India, not just about comedy. It's about this fundamental human right, freedom of expression, and how we protect that, nurture that in a world that's changing so fast.
And free speech, it doesn't mean just saying anything you want with no consequences. It's about understanding the weight of your words, engaging in dialogue, respectfully, even when you have different views. Freedom comes with responsibility.
Yeah, it's about constantly learning, adapting, finding that balance between what individuals can say and what's good for society as a whole.
We've talked about so much in this deep dive. The Samay Raina case, India's press freedom ranking, Elon Musk's ideas, even the role of AI in all of this. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But the conversation doesn't end here. The debate around free speech is always evolving. And we need your voices to make it richer, more nuanced.
So keep those other opinions coming. What are you thinking about? What solutions do you see? Let's chat in the comments. And don't forget to like and share this episode. The more people we have thinking about this, the better.
Absolutely. And before we go, we just want to be upfront and say this was an AI podcast, so some of what we talked about might not be totally accurate. Always do your own research, explore different viewpoints, come to your own conclusions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some food for thought. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those other opinions flowing. We'll catch you next time on The Other Opinion.